Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. My name is Molly. I'm a mum here in the UK of two children. My husband and I have a biological daughter who is 5 and a little boy who we adopted through the UK adoption process who is now 2. I'm making this video today at a request. I've had so many messages this last month over on my Instagram about how we maintain a relationship with my little man's foster family post-placement. What it looked like initially in the first few days after he moved home, what it looks like now, and the kind of tips and tricks that we used with the support of my little man's local authority to transition my little man into continuing to see foster carer whilst being able to process his grief after moving home. When we were planning introductions, we had the kind of placement planning meeting at the same time, and this was where me and my husband, foster carer, and my little man's social worker, family finder, and any other professional that was kind of relevant and involved sat down together. It was virtual, of course, because it was a pandemic, and we discussed what the relationship would look like between us and foster carer post-placement. Now, initially this meeting focused on what it would look like straight away, and this is, the day after he's moved home to the week after and the month after he moved home. Now, every LA local authority is very different on how they want to handle this. We were really fortunate that me and my husband and my son's local authority and foster carer were all on the same page. We wanted ongoing contact with foster carer pretty much from the day my little man moved home, because we didn't want him to think that they had fallen off the face of the earth. We knew little man was going to grieve the loss and the separation from his foster carer. He had grown dependent and securely attached to his foster carer and must have trusted her wholeheartedly. And so we didn't want him to think that she'd just vanished and abandoned him. We wanted her to be present. We wanted the family to be present. And how we did this was really, really important. Now, his local authority felt exactly the same. And of course, foster carer wanted to continue the relationship because she was gutted that he was going, but obviously understood why and was really keen to ensure that he knew that she was still around, she still loved him and was there for him whenever he needed it. We made a plan for the first 2 weeks and the first month, in fact, after placement initially. And what this looked like was a foster carer after placement day would come to our home to visit little man in the home 2 days after placement. They would then come a week after, and they would then come 2 weeks after that. That was the initial kind of period of when foster carer would come and visit our home, see little man in the home, not taking him back to foster home to confuse him, them to come here so that he knew, you still exist, I can still see you, I love you, you love me still, we're okay, I can start to feel a little bit safer. And the kind of plan behind that was to help my little man grieve. His social worker really didn't want him to grieve a full loss of foster carer as if they had died. They wanted him to grieve the loss of foster carer while having them present, so that he knew that they still existed, that was still a part of him that he could still access, which meant that in his eyes, she thought we were safe. Which is all part of introductions, handing over the responsibilities and the child looking at the foster carer who they hopefully trust, handing over responsibilities to the parents so that they can see that the foster carer trusts the parents. That continued beyond placement. This worked really well initially. My little man just ran to the door. He would scream their name, lots of cuddles, and when foster carer left, there was a little bit of grief that seemed to reappear at bedtime. Bedtime routine would be hard. He would cry a little bit, and I think that was part of the grieving process for him. Seeing his foster carer every couple of weeks would obviously remind him that he's grieving that. And I think that in the short term, that must have been really difficult. But where we are now in the longer term, it's been so beneficial because he's had the reassurance that they're still around and they're still present. After these initial 3 visits, it was very much down to us about how we wanted to do this. So the local authority had always said, please keep in touch with foster care, share pictures, foster care is going to be grieving, little man's going to be grieving, FaceTime, whatever you can. And we did FaceTime as well in the initial couple of days at home as well, so that little man, could see foster care on FaceTime as well. But what me and my husband kind of decided to do is around once a month, we would want to kind of see foster care, or maybe like every 6 to 8 weeks, whatever was realistic for us all. with, you know, the kind of commute and the journeys involved. And foster carers seemed really happy with this as well. Started out meeting outside of our house and outside of foster home. And this was because we didn't just want to take little man back to foster home and him be overwhelmed and triggered with all of the memories, because that's where he spent the huge majority of the beginning of his life. And so we would meet up in the park just so that he could kind of establish that relationship again. And it was wonderful, you know, they'd have cuddles, they'd walk and hold hands, then we'd say bye-bye. And at this point we built it up to a point where there was no kind of signs of any grieving. Little man just seemed really content and happy. And I'd say we did that probably for about 3 visits. At this point, foster carer was also really wary that little man might have felt a little bit uneasy going into their home. So they were really proactive in wanting to meet up away from both of our homes as well, because they'd had experience of previous children really struggling going back to the foster home. But after about 3 visits over about 3 months, we decided to pop by. We were in the area and we thought we're going to try it. So we told foster care and said, yeah, let's try it, let's do it. And so we popped by just thinking, you know, we need to plan realistic here. It's going to be about 10 minutes. And that's the kind of tip and trick that I would firstly suggest, is that when you do start introducing little one back into the foster home, in terms of, you know, visiting foster carer there, if that's what you plan to do, keep a realistic idea that it might only be a quick 5-minute trip. If the child is in distress or doesn't respond well, you're probably going to have to leave. So we were all very prepared to have to go in and straight back out. We started out just by parking up outside. Little man walked himself to the door. We kind of followed. We encouraged him to knock. Big Mist helped knock, and foster carer just opened the door, and we were fully prepared to just kind of have a chat on the doorstep as well. But little man walked inside, waltzed in, took his shoes off, and we just let him lead. We completely let him lead. We did put a bit of a time cap on it so that it didn't go on too long and little man was thinking he was going to stay there. So we were there about an hour and a half and we played. Little man seemed really content, but we knew that the real test would be when we got home or the way home and it was time to leave. So I think here it's really important to just, again, kind of preempt that leaving foster home might be a difficult thing for your little one, because for our little man, the last time he went to foster home, or the last time he left foster home, we were taking him home forever, and to him that will have been significant and probably really quite difficult for him. That was the kind of start of his grieving process for foster carer. But we did it. He came home. Again, we had a bit of a restless night's sleep, but we gradually then just started to build it up slowly. So we might have had another monthly meeting outside, and then we'll have popped by foster carers again. And each time we've built it up slowly. He's been able to see other foster children that are new in the home. So to kind of realise that it's not his house, there are other children there now who live there and his home is with us. And a year later we've got to a really positive point where little man waltzes in like he owns the place. He remembers where everything is. He remembers where the snacks are, obviously. He remembers where the stairs are. He remembers where his toy box was, and he even looks at the foster kids there sometimes like, who are you and what are you doing in my stuff? But we've really got to a good place, and I think it's because we did quite a long transition period visiting foster carer back at their home and making sure that he felt really safe and secure in doing so. The main kind of goal here, I think, is for everybody to be on the same page. Us and foster carer have always been on the same page, which has been amazing in settling him and making sure that he feels okay. We've also been really realistic. Both of us, foster carer kind of expected it not to go to plan. We never expect it to go to plan because we just are led by little man and his wants and his needs. And in doing so, we had no expectations, which meant that we weren't disappointed, we weren't frustrated, we just literally winged it. And if he wasn't going to respond well, then we'd adjust it for next time and we'd continue that relationship outside of the foster home. But fortunately for us, it has worked really, really well. A lot of people also ask me about the importance of continuing relationships with foster carers, and I'll link to some videos where I've discussed this before. But for our little man, when he's growing up and he starts to be curious about his story and why he came into care, we know he's probably going to have a lot of questions, and we think what better to do than to pop into the area, swing by foster carers home, and he can have those conversations with them himself, because he's going to have that relationship there with somebody who's so special and so relevant to his life. Particularly the start of his life and his time in foster care. And they're going to have so many more memories that we don't even know about. You know, we can only talk about so much in the visits that we do and in introductions when things are full on. And so each time we see foster carer, we learn something new about little man. And so for him to have that relationship and find that out himself, hopefully if he wants to when he's older, is amazing. Our role in this as his parents is just to kind of facilitate that and just make sure that he has the option if he wants to pursue it. It might be that he doesn't want to, but for us, keeping those relationships similar to, I guess, birth family contact, we think is so significant in how secure and confident our little man is going to be in who he is when he's older. And you know, it's worked for us. It's worked really well so far, and I can't say too much because he's only 2. We've got a long road ahead, but I think we're paving a good pathway to make sure that he has kind of all of the people and all the information that he needs there for when he's older. I hope that's been helpful. I don't feel like this has been the most informative video. It's more just been sharing my story about how we kind of transitioned him into that relationship with foster carer and getting him back into the foster home just for social occasions. But people have been asking, so I guess it's a question, and you know, I think it's a question that I probably would have had when we were in the process as well, so I hope that's been helpful. If you do have anything else you want me to cover, then please leave a comment below, or you can email me on my email below, or follow me on Instagram at MollyMamaAdopt. I tend to be more reactive on there, responsive to messages and comments, and I log a lot of my journey from back in 2020 or 2019 even, when we started the process. I've got highlights on there going through the process, the matching, introductions, post-placement, everything you could possibly need. So please do check that out as well, and don't forget to subscribe to my channel for more adoption related content. Thank you for watching, guys. Bye.